Hello folks, it is time for some more hobby nightmares. It is Friday, well Thursday when I'm recording this, but it's Friday. Sorry you didn't do any hobby nightmares on Wednesday. We had a bit of a heavy day in the old northern family over here, so I had to rush over and make sure everybody was okay. When things go wrong, lads, right, when things go terribly wrong and you're a man, you're allowed to have a moment to yourself, but in front of your family, people you got to keep together, hold them together, mate. Right? That's the man thing to do. All right? I'm not saying hold it all in and be some stoic dude who never feels anything. I mean, in your own time, in private, in your own place, let yourself feel things. But yesterday was a day where I had to essentially be that person for everyone around me, and I'm comfortable doing that. I'm happy doing that, and you should be too. It's good stuff, right? You're the Rock, dude. That's what you are. You're not literally Dwayne Johnson. I mean, it would be nice if you were, but like... Anyway, moving on. Let's do our first hobby nightmare. This first one is on competitive 40k. It's from Macro. How's it going, man? He says, "Hello North, it's Macro again. I wrote in a few months ago. I'm the law enforcement professional who started going stir crazy during the lockdowns and subsequent anti-police riots, but discovered this awesome and creative hobby to help rebalance my mental state." Well, yeah, I remember that one. Firstly, thank you for your comments regarding my marriage and wife. She appreciated the glowing praise. 16 years later this year, 16 years together this November. My God, man, that's a long time. Good for you. Secondly, I am an aspiring writer. You got it in one. I've got a number of stories rattling around my skull meat that I would love to publish someday. More polish needed though, but my greatest challenge there is always, perfection is the enemy of done. I promise to keep working at it. Dude, that's... I've been there, man. I have been there. Yeah. It is very much... Being a writer, dude, like, you've got to give yourself a break. The reason why Stephen King and Brandon Sanderson and all these dudes write so many novels is because they stopped caring, right? They just started to say, do you know what? I'm going to get this novel out, and I don't care if anyone likes it. I'm just going to put it out. And that's what sold, right? Those are the books that finally sold. It's not your magnum opus. Like I've got one right now. I'm writing a role-playing game, and it's... I'm so trying to get it right, but you got to also be very careful. Yeah, get it right, but also realize when enough's enough, dude. It's good enough. Work at it. Don't get downhearted about it. Anyway. Thirdly, I'm perhaps halfway through a first iteration of a tabletop model skirmish game. Good for you, man. This is something I intend to publish at some point soon, depending on if I can secure licensing for the IP I have in mind. If not, it will take more time to scrub away anything that can be identified as belonging to a franchise, but it will be published. Today's nightmare is how I first began to play 40k and then discovered an extreme that I didn't know really existed. While I was beginning to assemble my start collecting Adeptus Mechanicus and painted my first model, the Dune Rider, from the same box, I was devouring the rules for the game and creating army lists. Much of my free time was spent consumed by thoughts of this excellent new hobby. I dreamed of points values and cinematic wars fought over scattered planetary ruins. I wasn't sure really where to begin. After some more thorough scouring of YouTube videos on playing 40k, I discovered one from a channel that covered tournaments. The channel hosted its own Discord server and constantly ran a competitive focused games online via Tabletop Simulator, TTS, on the PC. I was very intrigued. I'd thought my first game of 40k might be months or years away due to the ongoing lockdowns and not having finished a full army to play with. If there was a digital option, I could dive right into learning the game when I have no time to paint. I did more research, learning how my normal army list could be imported and matched to 3D models on Tabletop Simulator. The models then had relevant datasheet stats coded into them for quick reference, and were collated into an army based on the list you imported. I think Tabletop Simulator is how we're going to balance Exile Edition, because rather than having people meet up in real life, I think we're going to do it on Tabletop Simulator. If you're interested in being a beta tester, right, a game tester for Exile Edition 40k, let me know, comment section, or email me. Anyway, moving on. Curious, I joined the two relevant Discords. One of the mods that enabled 40k to play on Tabletop Simulator, and the other games for the events. I was warmly greeted on both, something I was a little nervous about. I've been part of enough nerdy spaces that are downright hostile to new people joining that I wasn't sure how I would be received. I asked for my first game at 500 points, explaining that I was brand new, but I'd read the rules. One friendly introduction, and 2 hours later, I had gotten into round 3 of playing Necrons against Iron Hands before both of us needed to call it a night. I was immediately hooked though. My opponent had been patient and helpful, explaining the more complex rules and timing of phrases perfectly. I knew I was going to have to explore this much further. For close to 2 years, I was a constant presence on the competitive Discord. The host was enthusiastic in his coverage of games and constantly pushed new events on his server. For the finals of any given event, he would live stream the game and commentate live for coverage, and was even sometimes invited to do the same at in-person events. I overcame my initial shyness about participating and began joining local tournaments, called pods. I lost as much as I won, mostly piloting weird army lists that I'd created myself that leaned into a particular unit or rules interaction. I brought 3 full units of Necron Scarabs, partnered with 3 units of Canoptech Spiders at one point. I wasn't out to win, but to experiment, even though winning was also nice. I never won a tournament, but I did so well enough to progress to a winner's pod once after doing well in my first 4 matches. The server host even sent me some neoprene objective markers with his channel branding after playing in a beginner's tournament that he hosted. I was having an absolute blast, constantly consuming the rules updates and changes that were flying fast and thick in 9th edition at the time. Then, I found the wall. I discovered one of the long-held tenets of 40k firsthand. The Eldar are either mid to weak or the best army in the game bar none. Upon the 9th edition Eldari Codex release, I found out the truth in that phrase. The haughty, barely extant poster children of hedonistic regret were once again utterly broken. I'd read the rules overview for the Space Elves, but I'd never really played them. I still have no desire to play Eldari, except Harlequins, because I guess I'm just a massive hipster, so they're just not my thing. I joined a pod that was starting up after the Codex release with my Imperial Knights list that I had been having some success with. My first game was a complete shutout. I was move blocked, shot to death, and charge denied the entire game. The opponent would park a shooting unit in contact with a wall, fire, and then use his movement trick to scoot back just under 1 inch from the wall so I couldn't charge them and be in engagement range. Wow, that sounds like fun. Dude, horrid. Oh my god. Baharoth and his swooping idiots became an absolute nightmare, hopping up and down across the board to secure points and put volleys of weak shot into my knight, forcing the inevitable failed saves. I never managed to charge them, and only managed to shoot them twice with some Helverins. The final score was something like 95 to 15. The opponent wasn't rude or anything, but got very engaged as he mostly tunnelled on playing a perfect game and denying me any scoring. Not a single moment of the game was fun for me. I shrugged it off though. Valuable experience for the future and all that. I did poorly in that pod and was out quickly, so I joined another one and brought my white scars as I figured I needed more ranged options and fast melee to deal with all of the elves. Out of curiosity, I checked the submitted lists for this pod and just about choked. Something like 70% Eldari. Mostly standard elves, but some pure Harlequins players mixed in. Dude, this is the danger, okay? When you're playing the physical hobby, there is a barrier to entry, right? So if a really broken list comes out, like back in the day the Leagues of Atam were really broken, you know what I mean? You had to go and buy those models to partake in the cheese, right? This is a free free models in a next to free game, right? Anyone can bring anything that they want, so you're going to get this. Everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon. Everyone's going to, do this stuff. Anyway, I'm no idiot. I'd seen what happened with powerful Codex releases before. 9th was especially bad for that, or so I'm told. I'd never seen it to this degree though. Pods had usually been pretty mixed with factions, even if there were either meta lists or strange experiments. Still, I had a lot of confidence in my list. Plenty of bikers and outriders with advance and charge, with mixed range shooting and anti-tank to support. I can picture this game vividly due to the events that followed, right down to the digital terrain used and where certain units were placed. I won't bog things down by reading off it blow by blow. I'll just highlight a few points that led to this game being a major reason for my disillusionment with the tournament scene. I got first turn, and luckily my opponent had deployed very cagily, hiding units in and behind terrain. My bikes were going to be hard pressed to destroy Eldar flesh in round 1. Dude, a lot of people want to destroy Eldar flesh, but not in that way. I rolled no higher than a 2 for all of my advances, leaving my army mostly stranded in the midboard, and the terrain was awful. A preset construction from the previous edition. My giant biker unit was struck near a fountain in the centre of the board, almost totally exposed to his gunboats for his turn. I sighed and took it on the chin, but my opponent wasn't being a dick about it, so it was all fine. The thing that bothered me about him was the casualness, the blasé attitude that seemed to be trying and failing to suppress, as though it was perfectly natural that the chips would fall all the way for him. No commiseration, no banter, just, oh, my turn then, okay, followed by space elves and a splash of harlequins, deleting close to a third of my army. Second round was more of the same. Despite nearly being in his face at this stage, I still failed easy charges and had to desperately reposition units in the back to stop more hawks from stealing my objectives. Nothing I did really mattered. Most of my units died. The game ended with my having successfully charged one of the fire dragons, failed to kill it, then died to shooting when it fell back on its turn. Another game against Eldar that was just the antithesis of anti-fun. The antithesis of fun, sorry. That's me being a dick. To this day, I have never felt so disregarded by an opponent. He closed the game up by saying, and I quote, "A good start for this pod, I'll submit the scores." Then he abruptly left the call with no so much as a good game. Yeah, I have a feeling, right, that the true tournament sweaty dudes are in tournaments that are on Tabletop Simulator, because they don't have to do the hobby. Do you know what I mean? They don't have to do the hobby. They just download a pack and away they go. He was the worst opponent I've ever played against, but not in the manner of so many other stories that I've heard from your viewers. The callousness of a man utterly concerned with anything beyond his own scores doing well. I saw one end of the hobby, so to speak. What someone will become if they disregard everything else to do with the universe and models and just focus on the raw clickety-clack of number rocks. I wanted nothing to do with that. I like the game mechanics plenty, but a game is the sum of its parts. The people on the server were only interested in a single aspect of the totality of the hobby. And so, things continued for weeks. Every pod stuffed to bursting with strange space elf players, making only minute tweaks to at the time the agreed upon strongest list. I simply wasn't enjoying it anymore. I still to this day have never had fun playing against Eldar, though admittedly that's due to my having exactly 2 games in 10th edition. I left that server around the same time 10th was announced. Competitive had lost all flavour to me once I really saw the sheer sweaty nature of the majority of its participants. I had not realised I was more of a narrative and casual player until I had the experience playing to understand it. Life's too busy these days to dedicate 3 hours to a game over Discord on Tabletop Simulator. Instead, I snatch minutes of painting time where I can, growing my armies a few models at a go. Having your community and others to share pictures of models with and ask for tips and advice really motivates me to stay invested and active in hobbying. Even better, my 3-year-old open interest in my models and wanting to sit on my lap and paint with me gives me hope for the future. I want to guide him, ensure he has a chance and a choice to enjoy something beyond work. If that ends up being the hobby, I'll be overjoyed, but I'll encourage him whatever takes his interest as he grows up. All the best from the west coast of America, North. Thank you for the work you do to create and maintain a space for us all. Macro. Cheers, man. And yeah, it is... You're very right in what you're saying. You're extremely, extremely right in what you're saying. You know, Tabletop Simulator is a great tool. but it also really does allow for, shall we say, people who don't care about the nature of the hobby, the ins and outs of the lore, to just take lists that they think is going to be, really good. And if you want to talk esport, Tabletop Simulator. That's it. You want to talk 40k being an esport? That's the one. If you can find fluffy people to play Tabletop Simulator with, you got the best of both worlds. Anyway, there we go. Moving on to John. How's it going, mate? He says, Dear North, I have been a long time on-again and off-again listener to your videos. Often playing while driving, doing gaming, or other activities. Well, cheers, man. Hopefully you're not driving now. You don't drive the car off the road listening to your own hobby nightmare. I was thinking after listening to your latest video on 10th edition and its problems, mainly secondaries, armies having too many options, taking forever to play and very little flavour in each army. I'm sure you hear many people saying what era of 40k is the best or their favourite. Just a little bit of my time with 40k, I played... Sorry? Just a little bit of my time with 40k, I played 3rd edition up until 6th edition, mainly running Dark Angels, Necrons, and Chaos Space Marines. Okay, so you've been there from 3rd to 6th, okay. And sometimes borrowing my brother's Demon Army. I quit in 6th edition since I did not like the changes to the rules, mainly due to the allied system. Necrons and Demon Hunters should not be allies. The Transporters, changing Psychic and Hero systems, and the Flyers all gave me a bad taste in the mouth. Then, I came back for 9th edition playing Eldar. I started before they got really good in the Codex, before quitting altogether, mostly due to how I found it boring, complex, and the rules changed too fast, and the last straw was simply called Armour of Contempt. I think you were right about the AP system, the armour penetration system, being better in the older games. I would add, I much prefer the hand-to-hand combat of the older games, mainly due to weapon skill and initiative. Plus, I think the auto 6 inches is preferable to a dice roll to see how far you can charge. Well, I'll be honest with you, mate. I figured by writing a 40k edition, initiative is only really needed if you don't do alternating activations. If you do, you don't really need initiative because you're selecting who goes first, because you're selecting who to activate first in the round of combat, right? The charger gets a free attack, one impact attack as they charged in. So if you have 10 Space Marines charging 10 demons, right? If the Space Marines charge in, they will get 1 attack each. At strength, no AP, right? An impact hit. We're in combat, right? Then after that, you then activate back and forth, is what you do. No, that's just how you do it. It's more tactical that way, and it's less, who's got a higher initiative in this stack here? That kind of a thing. It's much quicker. Anyway. Plus, I think the auto 6 inches is preferable to a dice roll to see how far you can charge. I will say, back in 3rd to 6th edition, most tournaments were between 750 to 1500 points, with 1500 points being the most common. This was, and I think still is better than 2000 points, especially for time. I agree, but Games Workshop won't do that because you need to spend more money on a 2000 point army than anything else. So, I wanted to see what your thoughts were about the end of 4th edition and the start of 5th before the new codexes came out. I think 4th edition had the best balance for codexes, with some exceptions. They produced the most amount of fun, and armies felt different enough without being overpowered most of the time. Take the Demon Hunters, the 3rd edition codex. Were more their own since they were elite but specialised in demon hunting, with a few of their ranged weapons were AP 4 or 5 but allow no invulnerable saves. They would be allied with Space Marines or Guard, which I thought was pretty cool. Okay. For reasons I picked 5th edition main core rulebook over 4th edition, but still think the 4th edition codexes were better. The first is the measuring rules. In the older ones, you could not pre-measure. It was not allowed. 2, the vehicle rules were updated. The third is the reserve rules and deep strike, and the 4th, updates on weapons that were needed, such as rending. Okay, so I get all of these. I don't like the pre-measuring rule. I get what it's trying to simulate, is that you wouldn't really know whether you could measure something or not, but again, It's to get rid of that really shitty feeling of trying something and then, oh, actually, I'm like half an inch out. You know? Allowing somebody to measure before they move something, it just takes away most of that arguing. It's decided, you know, should I move here? Can I target them if I move here? No, okay, I'm not going to move there then. That kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, your models, especially your Space Marines, could probably gauge, if I go up on that building there, I can't really shoot them because I'm going to be out of range, so you wouldn't go up there, right? That kind of a thing. Anyway, the problem started to happen once 5th edition started to produce codexes, with many not having any sort of balance whatsoever. Take the Blood Angels at the time of 5th edition. Land Raiders that could deep strike. I put it... yeah, I do, dude. I think 5th edition was like the first edition where they had a big slew of writers there who just didn't care, right? Things got better after that, but yeah. I put it to the fact that many of the creators left or were fired. Rick Priestley, Andy Chambers, and Alessio Cavatore all left after the 5th edition main core rulebook. Also, Gav Thorpe was still there, but he had less of a role. Probably why I found the game a little bit different, and I personally did not like it. It was due to different people working on it. I'm sure you felt the same about 8th edition onwards, as many people were changed back then. Anyway, it would be cool to hear your thoughts. Cheers, John. And also, he has sent in something very, very, very interesting, and that is the average playtime in a graph of Warhammer 40,000 editions. I thought you would all really like to see this. I'm gonna whack it on the screen. This is the average the average time to play. Now this is very interesting, right? At least to me. So you can see from like 6th edition onwards, the points jump up to 2,000 points, the average typical points games, you know what I mean? But we have 3rd edition here, you know, 1.5 to 2.5 hours. Smaller games, simpler rules, fewer special interactions, and quick turns. If you want a design ethos for Exile Edition, that's it. You know, 1,000 to 1,500 points worth of models, 1.5 to 2.5 hours of game time, and smaller games, simpler rules, fewer special interactions, and quick turns. Right, we're going back to 3rd edition, but introducing some of the nicer bits of the modern editions of 40k. That's what Exile Edition is trying to do, right? Trying to mix a few things together. We have 4th edition, which is 1,500 points, 2 to 3 hours. Rules are more detailed, there are more special rules, longer terms, but still manageable. The 5th edition, 1,500 points again, 2.5 to 3 hours. More special rules and cover mechanics, longer setup time, balanced, but also slower. 6th edition, 2,000 points average, 3.5 to 4.5 hours. Now this is the point where I started to get fatigued with 40k, right? Larger point scales, more complex rules, Overwatch, hull points, etc., and slower play. 7th edition, 2,000 points, 4 to 5 hours. Now, this is the one I have trouble with. 7th edition didn't take that long to play. I know, because this is the time when I was working for the company. I played a copious amount of 7th edition 40k. A lot of it. And I saw a lot of it being played even by beginners. I would say 7th edition was more on the 2.5 to 3 hours scale. I didn't really come across many games that took 4 to 5 hours of 7th edition. I'll be honest with you. Like, I played a massive game against a friend of mine at the store I was working at on my day off. It was a huge game that he booked a table for. And it was still, like, over in 2.5 hours. You know? I don't know. Introduction to more tactical layers, psychic phases, and complex stratagems. Longer terms. I think you're missing out detachments as well. That was in 7th edition. Detachments actually made games quicker. Even though I didn't like them. Because they were just so overpowered. Anyway, 8th edition. The edition I sold, hooray! 2,000 points, 3.5 to 5 hours. Streamlined some rules, but added stratagems and psychic phases, variable times. I don't agree with 5 hours 8th edition at all. I don't agree with that. Again, saw copious amounts of 8th edition being played. I would say 2.5 to 3.5 hours is my estimation on 8th edition. 9th edition, though, this is spot on. 2,000 points. Fewer tweaks and streamlined movement, however, larger armies and stratagems often extended play. Dude, you're forgetting the sheer amount of re-rolls in there too. Yeah, stratagems, yeah, loads of stratagems in 9th edition. I would say 4 to 5 hours is your norm in 9th edition. It was pretty ridiculous. And then 10th edition, of course, 2,000 points, 3 to 4.5 hours. I would say that's very kind. I think you're unkind to some editions, in my opinion, and you're very kind to others. You're very kind to 10th. 3 to 4.5 hours is very kind. Streamlining efforts have reduced some complexity, still sizable armies, but smoother flow. Can't agree. Can't agree. But what do you guys think of this graph? Let me know. Let me know. Let's move on to our next hobby nightmare, shall we? Before we go anywhere else. Let's do it. Alright. Whoops. Let me just follow on from here. Where are you? Where is my last hobby nightmare? Alrighty. No, I think that's it. I think that's the only one we got. I think that's the only one we got. Oh, no, found it. Excellent, thank you. Right. So our next one is from Blue. Let's go, Blue. He says, "Greetings, Mr. North. I am a long-time watcher of the channel. You may call me Blue, and I have a hobby nightmare that is not mine, but my father's. P.S. My grammar is bad because of early development and schooling. No problem, man. My father's hobby is OK Corral reenactments. Dude, he's a gunslinger? That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. He's like a cowboy dude. I like this. The reenactment was a group of guys that got together dressed up like cowboys and the Earp family. They act out a few of the scenes from the real-life shootout in Tombstone, Arizona, along with a few scenes from the Tombstone movie. This would be the last act they had, even though they had plans on working with a train station where people would get held up during a town train ride." That's amazing, dude. I love this. I love this. The act starts like this. 4 men sitting at a poker table while the crowd watches safely along the sides of the outdoor show. The men are playing a game of poker, talking about random things. One of the men is Doc Holliday. There are curses thrown around when women in old-timey dress-up keep a squeaky toy above their bottom for a comedic effect. A hand is played again when one of the cowboys calls Doc a cheat. This man is my dad, playing Johnny Ringo. Johnny and the other cowboy get pulled away as more curses are thrown at each other. Take a quick drink. I'm alright for now, man. The table gets pulled away and a bunch of cowboys come running out carrying a chest full of fake dollars. One cowboy tries to pick the lock, but Johnny shoots the lock. There is black powder and a spring that breaks the lock, and the chest flies open and dollars fly all over the place. There is some infighting when the Earp brothers show up, with Doc to chase off the cowboys, firing guns in the air. The brothers deputize a few kids to pick up the dollars and give them sheriff's badges and coupons for a free hot dog after the show. That's amazing. The Earps take the chest away now that it is clean, but Doc stays behind. Johnny walks back into the opening, and that is when they talk about one another before drawing on each other, and Johnny falls to the ground. Doc walks away, and the other cowboys show up to see Johnny dead on the ground. They get the doctor, who looks like Abraham Lincoln, minus the large hat, who has a large coffin. He says that Johnny is dead, and they need to put him in the coffin. Once inside, one of the cowboys yells, "I want his boots!" Removing his boot, my dad usually wore a crazy sock and odd colours. They all yell, holding their noses. After throwing the shoe back into the coffin, the cowboys grab the handfolds and pick up the coffin minus the bottom and the body of Johnny. They walk away singing hymns. After a moment, Johnny sits up, looks around, then towards the group of cowboys, hopping every now and again as he tries putting on his boot. Now is the time for the final part of the show, where the nightmare actually shows up. The cowboys sit under a sign that says OK Corral, of course. The Earps show up along with Doc and tell the cowboys to turn themselves in before things get nasty. The cowboys do not listen and a shootout happens. Pretty much empty your guns of bullets, then fall to the ground. When all the cowboys are dead, a final man comes out with a shotgun only to be shot flail and fire the shotgun, blowing the chain free from one end of the sign to make it hang there. Typical Wild West stuff, yeah? After the show, everybody is taken away as the person playing Doc was peppered by something from somebody's gun. What? He was bleeding from his ear and holes in his jacket and pants. Everybody gave up their guns to find out who or what had messed up. They all shot at a cup. What? Till one gun peppered the styrofoam cup. I knew a cowboy had made his own blanks, and instead of using soft wax, he used Play-Doh that hardened over time, and it acted like pellets that hit Doc. Oh my god. Dude literally gets shot with an actual shotgun. Luckily, he did not get hit in the eye or any other places that could be more severe. That guy was asked not to come back or buy his blanks with proof that he bought them. Thank you again, North. Hope your day goes well. Best wishes to your family. That is the first OK Corral cowboy style reenactment Hobby Nightmare we've had, and I'm glad we did. Dude, that is. We've had this in paintballing as well, where people in paintballing have come in and you know, try to shall we say blind people with their hardened pellets. But anyway, that is Hobby Nightmares for today. I love you all a long time. I will speak to you over the weekend. You're going to get a very, very, very special 40k round on Saturday about the Terminus Decree. So, I'll speak to you then, and have a good one. Bye now.